Hello and welcome to this week's travel show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com. Later in the show there'll be travel news, including an announcement from Gascon Cycling Tours. You may remember I had them on a few weeks ago. They do cycling tours in France. We'll have an announcement about the football championships. So if you're interested in going over there, not too sure where to stay, make sure you listen to the travel news section at the end. I'm sure when you're on holiday, you've taken a photograph, or maybe dozens and dozens of photographs, but they just didn't quite capture the moment as you would hope. It wasn't a proper travel photo, it was a snap, and a very badly taken snap at that. Or maybe you are really quite clever at taking photographs and you had dozens and dozens and dozens of slides to make your friends and neighbours sit through when you came back. It's a lot easier now. You don't have to take the slides around. You stick it all on Facebook and people can look for themselves. It's better all round if you ask me. Well, my guest this week is Matt Wiggery. I got that wrong, I'm sure. Sorry, Matt. I do it every week. I always get people's names wrong. It's a terrible, terrible habit of mine. He's a professional. Well, Matt's a professional photographer, and this week he's going to be telling us how to take good holiday pictures, good travel pictures. And also he does workshops, so we'll be finding out about the workshops he does too to help you improve your photography skills. So, might as well start from the beginning. And the first thing I asked Matt was, when does a snap become a proper travel photo?
So, for me, it's all about the intent of the photo. So, when you go out and you take your picture, it doesn't matter if you're using an iPhone or the latest and greatest fancy camera gear. The most important thing is that when you raise your camera up to your eye to take a picture, you're thinking about it with intent. That means some creativity going behind it. So that you're not just kind of thinking, oh, look, there's a pretty beach over there, and lifting up your iPhone and sort of going click. And what you're actually doing is saying, okay, well, there's a nice palm tree over there. If that kind of folds down and like if I duck down a little bit, I can kind of see the mountain underneath there and maybe the sunset coming in over the water. So maybe if I move 3 feet up the beach and then kind of like sit down a bit, then that makes a nice photo rather than just kind of being where you are at the time and kind of lifting up and going click. So for me, it's the intent behind the picture that is the absolute key to everything. And that goes not just really for sort of travel photography or holiday photography, but anything. If you're keen on improving what you do and taking it to the next level with photography, it's all about just having a little bit of thinking process. I can't remember which photographer it is. For me, it feels like an Ansel Adams quote. I might be wrong. But it was someone like that, and he said the most important part of the camera, the most important sort of, gadget or gimmick on that little black box is 6 inches behind it. It's that kind of grey squishy matter that's in your head that's thinking about the picture before you ever click the button. So that's really it. For me, it's the intent of the picture.
So you would say the biggest mistake holiday makers make when they take a photograph is not to use the grey squidgy stuff.
Yeah. Use more grey squidgy stuff. That's really the thing. So I mean, if you want to be, sort of if you're out and about and you're not necessarily sort of thinking about photography as your main reason for going there, which most people are not. They're out there with the family and they're out there with loved ones who, frankly, don't really care about you taking pictures, and they don't want you to be sat there for a bunch of time doing all this stuff. You don't necessarily want to be there for a long time, kind of framing all this stuff up, but as the photography fan in the group, as you're walking down the street or strolling on the beach, if you've got this little subroutine playing in the back of your brain that just is thinking, okay, this is kind of like a nice scene, where's the light coming in from? What compositional elements can I take advantage of here? And then if you do get 5 minutes because, the kids want to go off and run, get an ice cream, or, perhaps, the other members of the family want to go and do a bit of shopping or, grab a nice drink down at the bar by the beach, you can quickly scooch off. You kind of know already because you've been thinking about it where the shot ought to be. So you're using that grey matter, not just necessarily at the time when you're taking the picture, but like all the time. It's kind of like just running as a little program. Then you can leap out, get what you need, and then come back and join them, and you're not going to upset your family and be divorced when you get home.
The amount of times I've upset my wife by sitting and trying to take a photograph, and she just says, hurry up, come along. So,
this is it. Because, I'm a photography geek. I will spend all day long getting the tripod out, trying a bunch of different lenses, going through all the different compositional elements of the picture, the people that I'm with are not necessarily going to be that pleased by that, you know. So a lot of it is just kind of being aware of that and doing as much of the sort of background in your head before you ever get the picture out, and then just try and be quick about it. You know, like you don't have to spend an hour taking a picture of a sunset, right? The sunset, you spend as long as it takes, and then you move on to the next thing and try and hang out with your friends and your family for a little bit as well.
Okay, I'll try and do that more often. Do as I'm told. You've just said you can use a camera phone or a camera, but what basic equipment should a holidaymaker really make sure they have with them when they're out and about taking their photos?
Yeah, I mean, you can take a brilliant photo these days with your camera phone, and many people do. But if you are in the market, if you're kind of listening to this and you think, okay, yeah, I quite fancy, getting a camera to go on holiday with, some of the things that you might want to consider. One of them is lightweight. You don't want to be carrying a big bag of stuff. And in the old days, you used to have to carry like a sort of DSLR, like a big camera with a sort of flapping mirror inside it.
Mm-hmm.
That looks similar to the old kind of like SLR cameras from the film days. They just put a digital sensor in these days. But nowadays, they've got these cameras called mirrorless cameras. They do all the same things that you get with a DSLR, but they're a lot smaller and lighter. So that's something to consider if you're going out and starting from scratch. Also, the lenses that you take with you are kind of important as well. Like, it's good not to have to be changing lenses the whole time. So if you've got a camera that's got either like a fixed like zoom range, you get these kind of bridge cameras and things that have got a massive zoom range on there.
Mm-hmm.
They can be pretty good. Not necessarily so good in low light, but you can get around that with flashes and things. But if you are thinking about taking it to the next level, you might want to invest in two lenses. One would be a zoom range, so you can leave that on pretty much all the time. And so the one I use for travel a lot with my Fuji system is other brands are available. But for my camera it goes from like 18 millimeters out to 135. And that's pretty good for just keeping on the camera all the time. But the other lens that I take with me is a little 35 millimeter fixed focal length, which is much, much better in low light. And that means that if I do go into a dark church or I want to take pictures in a restaurant at night and that kind of stuff, it'll get more lights coming to the camera. And that means I can take pictures without the thing going blurry, either because I've had the shutter speed too low or because it's got noisy, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I recommend that. Other really important things that I would take on holiday, and this goes for everything, any camera that you take: spare batteries, spare memory cards. They're the most important things. That, if you want to invest in tripods and filters and all that sort of stuff, great, go for it. But if you don't, never ever go on any holiday, because these things are cheap, right? I mean, you can buy a decent memory card for a tenner, and you can buy a battery for sort of £4 or £5 off eBay, like a third name brand. I mean, it's not expensive stuff. But if you go to the Grand Canyon and it's sunset and you've trekked all day to get there across the desert, and just as the sun's coming down, an eagle floats across the canyon and its eye glints in the sunshine, and you lift up your camera and you go to press the button and it says out of battery or out of memory, you're going to be really, really disappointed because it's a long trek back to the hotel empty-handed. But with a couple of these things in your pocket that haven't cost you very much money, it will just get you out of trouble, because you can either run out of battery or memory, or you can drop one in the sea, or it can just fail. So just having spares of those things is just massively important.
I just want to add to that, is make sure you've got them on your person as well. I was given a free helicopter trip by the Cayman Tourist Board, and all my memory cards, I had plenty, were all in my bag in the luggage hold of the helicopter, and my camera was empty. So right. no shots of my helicopter trip, just memories. Okay. Yeah, it was awful.
Right. So, yeah, that's a good caveat to that as well. Make sure that you've got them in your pocket and on your person. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, it's if you're strapped into a helicopter and the overhead is like at the other end, you can't just get up and like wander off and get it. It's not so easy.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, make sure you got these things, accessible, and ready. The other thing I would probably sort of recommend, depends on where you go, but something like some kind of like rain cover that you can put over your gear just in case it absolutely chucks it down. I know a lot of cameras these days say that they're weather sealed or weather protected or whatever sort of phrase they use. But the reality is that none of them are absolutely waterproof unless you've got a sort of underwater housing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend having something like even if it's just a plastic bag or something that you can put over the camera to keep it dry, just in case there's a rainstorm. And you can actually get sort of more tailored fitting cases that you can fit over your cameras as well if you spend a little bit more money.
Hello, it's Roy. Yeah, we're on the ferry. We should be in Spain tomorrow afternoon.
Well, be careful. Lots of crooks on the roads out here.
Crooks? You know where I grew up.
This is different. They target British registered vehicles.
Yeah, they used to do that round my way.
I'm serious. They'll tell you there's something wrong with your car, so you pull over, then they rob you. Or they distract you at a motorway stop. They target hire cars, too.
Hire cars?
Yeah, well, they're driven by tourists.
Oh, OK, I'll watch out.
Good. So, looking forward to the drive down?
Yeah, well, I was.
Thieves in Spain have been targeting hire cars and UK-registered vehicles, so be extra careful on the roads. For details, visit gov.uk and search for Living in Spain.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on ukhealthradio.com. This week I'm talking to Matt Wiggery. We're talking about taking photographs, decent travel photographs when you go away on holiday. We just covered the sort of equipment you need to get the most of your travels. And just after I recorded this interview with Matt, I took my dog for a walk and I came across a man in the woods with a huge lens on his camera, all camouflaged up. It was very impressive and probably cost him more than it cost me to buy my car. So the photography is one of those hobbies, if you're not careful, you can end up spending a fortune. It's near enough, big enough to make a stall that the lens was that big. But anyway, I'm going to stop going on about this guy's lens. But Matt started talking about figures earlier when he was talking about his lens, a prime and a zoom. So I wanted to know if these numbers he was talking about was actually what's called focal length.
Yeah, that is focal length. Yeah. So what that means is that it's how sort of close you can get to your subject when you're sort of stood there. So think of it like if you kind of like you're sort of zooming in or sort of zooming out. If you're stood in you want to take a picture of something that's really far away. Perhaps you're looking at a mountain that's kind of like way over on the horizon line. The longer that focal length, the closer you can get to it. It sort of zooms in. It's like a telephoto. It's going to get much closer. And the other side of it is if you're sat around a table in the pub with your friends and you're trying to get everybody in the shot and you're also sat at the table, you've got to be able to kind of like see a much wider sort of, field of view to get everybody on the table. And that means you need a much lower focal length. So a zoom lens allows you to have all of that in one handy unit. So you're not changing lenses the whole time.
Cameras have loads of buttons and knobs and things to twist on them. Is it worth just leaving it in auto, or are you missing out just by taking snaps in auto all the time?
For me, this is what I always tell my students when they come on workshops. I don't care if you shoot in auto. I don't care if you shoot in aperture priority, manual, shutter priority, some weird filter mode. I don't care if you stand on one leg and press the button with your toe. Because nobody cares about that stuff when they see the photo. Mm-hmm. So if it's worked to get that photo, then it does not matter a hoot what the settings are that you use. However, I would say that the auto function on the cameras, they're pretty good these days and they're getting better all the time, but they're not infallible. And there are certain situations that they will struggle with. The classic one is backlighting. So, for example, if you have somebody with their back to